Welcome back, listeners. Before we dive in, I want to address why there was a long gap between episode 5 and this one. I didn't want to rush anything. I took the time to make sure every topic was researched thoroughly, every detail checked, and every story told accurately. From episode 5 to 6, I focused on getting the facts right, no exaggerations, no shortcuts. And for those wondering, there's much more to come. There will be an all-new episodes each week leading up to the end of the year, culminating in episode 30, which will be final revelations and connections across everything we've explored. Now, let's continue our journey, starting with one of the most debated events in modern history, the moon landing. Welcome back to the Conspiracy Atlas, the podcast exploring the world's most fascinating mysteries and secrets. Today, we're heading to outer space, specifically the moon landing of July 20th, 1969. Was it one of humanity's greatest achievements, or one of the biggest cover-ups in history? And some say there's even a connection to Hollywood. Stick around because this episode is going to challenge you, what you think, and what you may not know. What is the official story? And is everyone familiar with the Apollo 11 moon landing that happened and launched on July 16, 1969, carrying Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins? 4 days later, Armstrong and Aldrin landed on the moon in the lunar module Eagle. Armstrong's famous words,
"That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
Meanwhile, Collins orbited above in the command module. They collected moon rocks, planted the American flag, and broadcast live TV images to millions on Earth. Humanity had achieved the impossible. Almost immediately, hoaxes and doubts started surfacing. Some of the main points skeptics raise: photos and shadows. Shadows in lunar photos sometimes fall in different directions, leading some to suggest multiple light sources. The waving flag. The American flag seems to flutter even though there's no wind on the moon. Radiation. Could humans survive the Van Allen belts? Moon dust and footprints. Some question how the dust behaves so perfectly in photos. And there's more, one of the most talked about twists. Film director Stanley Kubrick. Some theorists claim that the Apollo 11 moon landing was filmed on a soundstage, and film director Stanley Kubrick, who did 2001: A Space Odyssey, which came out in 1968, a year prior to the moon landing, a film which was famous for its realistic space visuals, was secretly involved in directing it. Proponents of this theory point to Kubrick's film mastering realistic zero-gravity effects, subtle visual clues later in his films, which they interpret as him trying to signal that he helped fake the moon landing, and the timing. 2001: A Space Odyssey, as I stated, came out in 1968, just a year before Apollo 11. Of course, we know that there's no verified proof Kubrick directed a fake moon landing, but it's become a cornerstone of the moon landing conspiracy lore. Now, on the other side, scientists and NASA have explanations for all these claims. Shadow and lighting. Uneven lunar terrain causes shadow to look strange. Light reflecting off the moon surfaces adds complexity. The flag movement. The flag moved only when planted, but then they stated inertia made it appear to wave. Radiation. Astronauts' trajectory and spacecraft shielding protected them from the Van Allen belts. The moon rocks. Analyzed worldwide and verified by independent scientists. And the retroreflectors. Lasers from Earth still bounce off reflectors on the moon, which is one of the most compelling theories because, personally, as your host, I have not heard of the reflector theory, which is very, very interesting. So while Kubrick theories and hoax claims are popular, evidence overwhelmingly supports that humans walked on the moon. But the Kubrick theory adds an intriguing layer, part Hollywood, part mystery as well. Now, why does this theory persist after so many years? And why do people continue to doubt the moon landing? Basically, it's the distrust in government, Vietnam War, Watergate, and general skepticism about authority. Psychology of conspiracy, people are drawn to hidden truths and clever secrets. And pop culture influence with films like 2001: A Space Odyssey or documentaries that highlight the plausibility of a staged landing. Or the Kubrick factor, ladies and gentlemen. The genius of his visuals allow people to imagine a realistic moon landing on a soundstage. Now remember, back then, everything was black and white. So we thought to believe, if you're alive back then, that the moon landing was actually happening. If you could imagine it in color and then we seeing the moon landing today, things probably could have been a little bit different. So, what do you think? Did humans really walk on the moon? Or was it a brilliant production masterminded by NASA and even maybe the late great Stanley Kubrick? That's the thing that makes us want to believe in these theories and if we actually landed on the moon. I mean, it's been close to 50 plus years. And there have been a lot more expeditions from the Apollo, missions, but none as successful as Apollo 11. But why was only Apollo 11 successful? And why haven't we been back on the moon? The space race happened in the 1960s between the Soviet Union and America, and it's kind of starting up once again. But you ask yourself this question, why haven't we been back? And if we do go back, will it be staged once again? Or will it be actually broadcasting from the moon? So what do you think? Did humans really walk on the moon? Or excuse me, let me rephrase that. Did astronauts really walk on the moon? Or was it a brilliant production that, kind of takes things to a master degree and makes you think? Which evidence convinced you or made you skeptical? And do you see any hidden clues in Stanley Kubrick's films? More importantly, the biggest one is the documentary Room 237. Or, if you watch The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, and it's been stated that he kind of gives hints that the moon landing was faked. You can believe what you want to believe, but that's the interesting aspect here at the Conspiracy Atlas that we like to uncover and talk about. So that does it for this week's episode of the Conspiracy Atlas about the Apollo moon landing. And did we really go to the moon? And why haven't we been back? Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with family and friends who love a good mystery, a good story, and, kind of bring up that debate on what is real and what isn't real and what will happen. I'm your host, and that's this week's episode of The Conspiracy Atlas.